it really is important that you notice people in your life who are operating in a toxic way and that you protect yourself from it, right? Because it doesn't benefit us to allow toxic friends into our life who are going to drain us and essentially put us in a place where our radiance begins to get covered up because we have to deal with the negativity and with the repercussions of the manipulation.
You're watching Developing Potential with Diana Keuilian.
Hi, friends. Welcome back. Today, we're talking about toxic friendships and the process of getting yourself out of these situations and these relationships that ultimately leave you very drained and can kind of infiltrate lots of different parts of your life in a really negative way. And so I am speaking from some experience because I've definitely fallen prey to toxic friendships in my life. And they stick with you. There's something about, getting out of a toxic situation and then looking back and trying to process what happened, but it sticks with us, especially if you're somebody like me who kind of wears your heart on your sleeve and sort of expects that everyone else is being genuine as well. And then when you find out that actually there are people who manipulate and take advantage and use people. And so this is something that's really coming up with several of my teenage clients. And this is something that, we hope that we grow out of, having toxic friendships and maybe treating people in ways that we shouldn't. Sadly, it still does happen in adults. And, my most recent experience with toxic friendship happened as an adult. This subject of, having to deal with people who are toxic and now friendships that are toxic, it's such a popular topic. And every time that I really go there with this podcast and start giving some tips and ideas and sharing things about how do we handle these people and these situations, it's always something that people are interested in. And I think that is because it impacts us so deeply. The experience of having somebody in our life act in a toxic way, and especially if it's someone who you consider a friend, it's really a difficult experience to have. And it's something that really does require that we do self-reflection and we process it when it's all said and done, because it can really impact our ability to feel that we can trust other people, right? And so in thinking about this topic and just knowing how this topic of toxic people and toxic relationships is something that people are searching up and want to know, and maybe you have somebody in your life who you're thinking about, I did decide to do this topic because I want to highlight the signs that a friendship is toxic, or that somebody in your life who you consider a friend is actually a toxic friendship. And hopefully somebody watching can learn something and can get out while you still can. Because these friendships do have a way of having a negative impact on us, and it can hurt our other relationships in our life depending on how deeply the toxic friend has become embedded in your life. So let's dive in and let's look at the signs that somebody in your life is a toxic friend. And a disclaimer, I don't like to put labels, and I have been saying toxic friend, but I really mean someone who is behaving with toxic behavior because, it is my belief that everybody has radiance at their core. And I think that there are people who get very cut off from their radiance. And I've had experiences with people like this in my life, right? Where they behave in a way that is very hurtful to others, and they take advantage and they manipulate, and it can leave you feeling, losing some of your hope in humanity. And I do believe that the reason that people can get to this place is that they are covering up their radiance with just layers and layers of bad habits and, lots of the things we talk about on the show, right? Cognitive distortions, and then negative emotions, and then a dysregulated nervous system, and then unprocessed, memories and traumas, right? The reason that we want to work through all this stuff is so that we can better connect with that radiance, right? Our higher self, so that we can be good to others and live in a way where we know that we're connected to everyone else on this planet in a positive way. And so there are people, and lots of us have had times in our life when we're this way, when our radiance is more covered because we have these dysfunctions, right? And then another one is substance abuse, right? Like when we're doing things with our physical body that are destructive, and then we're holding on to these negative emotional patterns, these negative thought patterns. There's so many ways that we can cover up our radiance. And so when I use the term toxic friend, by no means am I labeling someone as toxic, but when somebody is at a place in their life where their radiance is so buried under so much, right? So many layers that they need to peel off to get access to this goodness and this radiance inside of them. And so just a little disclaimer there, because I am going to use the term toxic friend, but I say that knowing that every single person out there has the seed of radiance in them, and it is our duty and our job to uncover our radiance, and there's hope for everyone. Okay, so here are some signs that somebody in your life is behaving as a toxic friend. The first sign, and these can be subtle, and I think that's another reason why we're so interested in this topic of toxic friends and toxic people, because it's like it's subtle and it's under the surface, and that's why we can get fooled. And it's happened to me, and it stays with you when you're like, how did I get fooled? So here's some signs. 1, they celebrate the pain of others. And this is a theme that will run through all people who are behaving toxically. They get excited when bad things happen to other people, right? Oftentimes they will help bad things happen to other people. But if somebody in your life, their response to seeing someone in pain or someone lose is to be happy and excited, that is a sign to you that this is toxic behavior. This friend who's excited when other people fail is one day going to be excited when you fail. And you might even find that they're going to try to make you fail in some ways or lose in some way, right? So that's a trait to look for. Like, wow, if somebody is in touch with their radiance, they want others to succeed. That is just the way it goes, right? If you're in touch with your radiance, you see the radiance in others and you want others to do well. If you've covered up your radiance and you're disconnected from it and you see others fail, you're excited. You want them to fail because you think if they fail, then it's going to help me do better, right? So knowing that somebody in your life wants others to fail is a big sign that they might be a toxic friend. Okay, toxic friends will bend the truth or flat out lie to you. It could be about small things or big things or everything in between, but honesty, transparency, authenticity are just not elements that a toxic friend has, right? They bend the truth, they make things up, they create narratives. When you notice somebody in your life often bends the truth or just flat out lies to you or others, and they do it like it's nothing, that is a sign that this is a toxic friend. Toxic friends will often tell you what you want to hear and utilize flattery when it serves them, right? So a big theme that runs through a toxic friend is it's really manipulation. And so when somebody is ultimately trying to manipulate you, part of how they want to manipulate you is how you feel about them. And so giving you insincere compliments or, being complimentary to you, but in a way that just feels a little empty or fake, that is somebody who's trying to manipulate how you feel about them. And so that's a sign like, wow, that's a toxic behavior to be insincere with our words. So that's something to look out for. Being inconsistent, right? Somebody who is operating from a place of trying to manipulate others in their life, they will often be inconsistent because it just depends on who they're trying to manipulate on that day, where their focus is, the way their actions are, the way their words are. And so when you have somebody in your life where you're like, man, they're very inconsistent. They're kind of all over the place. Like sometimes they're really attentive to me and sometimes they ghost me for like weeks at a time. Like looking for inconsistencies, that's a sign, right? That this person really isn't being straight up with me. This one upsets me because when I look back at, the most recent majorly toxic friendship that I endured in my life, I consistently got a gut feeling that something was off, but I ignored my gut feeling. And so if you're getting a gut feeling with somebody, just somewhere in your gut is like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Or like, wait, that doesn't add up. That is a serious, serious sign that there's something up with this friendship. And so this one, I'm way more in tune with my gut now, and I've learned a big lesson, but always, always, always pay attention to your gut, because we know that someone who's behaving as a toxic friend, a lot of it is about manipulation. And our gut, our intuition is often aware of manipulation more than our thoughts are, right? And so the more you can kind of like hone in on like, wait, I'm just getting this gut feeling that like something is a little fishy. Listen to your gut feeling, really explore it, and don't do what I did, which was just push it down and ignore it. Okay, they know how to push your buttons. So a toxic friend is someone who, again, this goes back to manipulation, but they love to push the buttons of the people around them. And what do I mean by push your buttons? They know how to get you fired up, right? So you might find that you have a friend who, starts talking to you about something that they know is going to irritate you, and you get angry, right? Or they have a way, because again, this all goes back to manipulation. They have a way of trying to stir up your emotions in a negative way. And very often they'll do it because they're trying to move you to action in some way, right? And so a really common occurrence is how, going back to number one, they celebrate the pain of others, and oftentimes they try to create loss for others. And so just a very simple way to do that is to say negative things to one friend so that friend will get upset with this other friend, and the whole thing, all the drama gets stirred up because the toxic friend is pushing people's buttons. Another sign that you have a toxic friend in your life is that you physically and emotionally just feel drained after you've spent time with them. And so this is another one of those things where you have to really tune into yourself, into how you feel in your experience, your own energy, right? Your own vibe. When you've been around someone who is manipulating you, whether it's obvious or not, and a lot of these toxic friends, they do not do it in an obvious way, which is why we're so interested in this topic, because we all get duped from time to time, but your energy will be drained when you've been around them. When you are being manipulated, even if you're not consciously aware that you're being manipulated, your energy will be lower. Your energy will be drained. You will not leave that person and that interaction feeling like, whoo, like I feel energized, I feel good. No. You will feel drained. You will feel uneasy. You might feel some anxiety, some worry after you spend time with them. So really just paying attention to how you feel after you spend time with someone. Another thing that toxic friends will do is they do not respect your boundaries, right? And boundaries are such an important part of having healthy relationships, But most of us don't go around articulating our boundaries with people, right? We kind of live our lives with our boundaries, and we can feel when someone encroaches on our boundaries, but it's not something that a lot of us are able to speak to. But you can notice when someone is pushing the line of your boundaries and it feels like they're not really respecting you in certain ways, right? They're taking some liberties, and it'll give you a little uneasy feeling. So really focusing, and you might notice that they kind of disregard other people's boundaries as well, which is essentially under this boundary issue is respect, right? Respecting somebody else. A toxic friend is always going to take from you, and they're always going to use you. And so because it is done with such manipulation, oftentimes you're not as aware of it, or you might even think that you are making the decision to give them whatever it is that they need or that they're taking. But when you take a step back, you can see how it was all a manipulation. But somebody who's a toxic friend is not someone who's generous with you. They are not giving to you. It is a very one-sided situation where they are gaining the benefit from you. Toxic friends bring major drama into your life. And so just like I mentioned how a toxic friend will push your buttons and get you fired up, they'll push someone else's buttons and get them fired up. And there's always drama and upset emotions that kind of follow or circle around this person. So that is a big time sign for you that this friend in your life is actually quite toxic. Another sign that a friend in your life is actually toxic is that they have a pattern of burning bridges with people in their life. Now, we know after going through all of these signs that somebody who is operating as a toxic friend is really manipulating those in their life to get things for themselves. And when you do that consistently with people in your life, it leads to burning bridges, because someone who's behaving in a toxic way can only get away with it for so long. And that is just the truth of it. We can be gullible, we can be fooled, we can ignore our gut, but it will get to a point with most people where they'll wake up one day and the realization will come to them that like, whoa, this friend has really treated me poorly. They've taken from me, they've manipulated me. And when that happens, if you're a reasonable person, you'll want to have a conversation where there's some kind of accountability or there's some kind of acknowledgement. And truly toxic friends will absolutely not cop to any of it. They will not sit down and have a conversation about accountability or responsibility. They will gaslight you. They will maybe just ghost you, but it will result in a burned bridge. And so if there's a friend in your life who you're thinking there's some of these signs that they might be a toxic friend, look at the other relationships in their life that you know about. How many burned bridges do they have where they used to be close with somebody, they used to hang out with this person, but they're no longer on speaking terms, and you will see a trail of burned bridges behind every toxic friend in your life. So hopefully this has been helpful for you and, just gives you a little bit of insight as to how people behave when they're really showing up as a toxic friend. And like I said at the beginning of this list, I don't think that, behaving in a toxic way is a life sentence. I think that every single human has this radiance at their core, and it can get covered up with so many unhealthy habits and so many different things, but ultimately we can peel back the layers and we can get back in touch with really the beauty and the radiance that's at our core. And since you're watching this show, I know that it's important to you that you show up as a radiant human and that you show up in a way where you're not trying to manipulate people around you, but instead you are acting out of your authenticity, right? And you're doing it in a way to connect and to uplift other people. And so when you are showing up that way as a genuine, authentic person, it really is important that you notice people in your life who are operating in a toxic way and that you protect yourself from it, right? Because it doesn't benefit us to allow toxic friends into our life who are going to drain us and essentially put us in a place where our radiance begins to get covered up because we have to deal with the negativity and with the repercussions of the manipulation. And so it's important and it's a responsibility for each one of us to maintain healthy friendships and healthy relationships that allow us to be our highest self. And so with that, if you have noticed, hey, there is someone in my life where there's a lot of these red flags, creating some space. If you can't have a conversation with the person where there's some accountability and some acknowledgement to your concerns, then you need to honor your gut feeling and create these strong boundaries around yourself so that you don't just allow yourself to be drained and ultimately sacrifice your connection with your radiance. And so you know what? If this has happened to you and you've been duped and you've fallen for it, like myself, you've fallen victim to a toxic person who's come in and told you what you want to hear and then left you high and dry. Let's practice some self-compassion, right? Let's be gentle and gracious with ourselves and really just explore the experience, right? There's so much to be learned from every experience that we go through in life. And so anything like that where you look back and like me, maybe you're like, man, how did I allow that to happen? You might feel frustrated or embarrassed, but really, pushing through that aspect of it and looking through the lens of what can I learn here, right? What can I learn? How can I grow? How do I move on from this? And just knowing that the next friendship is only going to be that much more meaningful when you are able to have some discernment and allow others into your life who are really just as genuine and authentic as you are. So if you like this content, please like, subscribe, maybe share it with a friend. Sometimes it's easier for us to notice toxic friends in other people's lives, right? Because we can start to see some of the negative impact that a toxic friend has on someone we care about. Maybe forward this episode along to them. And I just thank you for watching, and I will be back next week with another message.
Thanks for watching Developing Potential with Diana Keuilian.